All right, y'all. Trump on Friday signed an executive order establishing a commission to investigate his fake voter fraud claims. Yes, fake. You know, he's the guy who said, oh, people just came across the state lines in New Hampshire from Massachusetts and voted. The Republican governor of Massachusetts, New Hampshire said, lie. Republican Secretary of State, lie. Even Corey Lewandowski, who was his campaign manager, who's from New Hampshire, said, that ain't true. Trump has continued to assert 3 to 5 million people voted illegally in the country. Where's the proof? Doesn't exist. So, what do we have? A new commission to so-called look at it. And what did he do? He picked a guy, Chris Kobach, out of Kansas, who is one of the biggest voter suppression advocates in the country. This commission comes on the heel of Pew dropping their research that shows, according to new figures from the Census Bureau, 137.5 million Americans voted in the 2016 presidential election. But there was a 20-year decline in black voter turnout. Folks, 2012, 66.6% of African Americans voted. 2016, 59.6%, a 7% decline. Keep in mind, 2008, black women voted at a higher rate than any other group in America. 2012, black women voted at a higher rate than anybody else in America. If you think voter suppression and voter fraud had nothing to do with it, you're crazy. This drop, folks, is the largest for any racial group since the voter turnout for whites dropped from just over 70% in 1992 to nearly 61% in 1996. But keep in mind, what did we see in Wisconsin? 200,000 people impacted by voter ID. Joining us is Nicole Austin Hillary, First Director and Counsel with the Brennan Center here in D.C. Of course, our panel is still with us. And bottom line is this here. I don't care what anybody says. You can sit here and spin this. You can say, well, it was Obama wasn't on the ballot. No, this wasn't the lowest in 8 years, lowest in 20 years. Voter suppression is the reason for this.
Yeah, Roland, people are fearful. They are. We know that Chris Kobach has been one of the main architects of the voter suppression effort that's taken place across the country. He was behind Arizona's effort. He was behind many efforts. And the fact that President Trump has just appointed him to be the co-chair with Vice President Pence of this voter fraud commission speaks volumes. Voters have been afraid of what the suppressive efforts might do to the vote. And it has indeed kept some people away from the polls. That has been the fear. That has been the concern.
And let's look at Wisconsin. So even though the courts allowed Wisconsin's voter ID law to go forward, what they then did was they said, oh, we're going to drag our feet. A federal judge had to order Governor Scott Walker's office to come into his court to say, why are you taking so long issuing the voter IDs? And not only that, that was a county administrator in one of the cities I think it was in Green Bay, who specifically said she was not going to put an early voting location on a college campus because she said too many of those students vote Democratic.
Well, this is not new, is it, Roland? Look, we all know civil rights history. We know that there have been times when the court has made certain orders. We saw this in Brown v. Board. Even when the court orders jurisdictions to do a certain thing, we know that oftentimes jurisdictions will slow down the implementation because they have other motives. So we see that happening across the country, even when courts have been ruling against some of these suppressive efforts. And look, here's the real issue, Roland. And I said this, I was on your show before and I said this. If Mr. Trump really wants to have a discussion about voter fraud and really wants to change the election system in this country and make it more efficient and effective and ensure that the Russians aren't going to be hacking us, he would be looking at what kinds of things can we implement, like automatic voter registration, to ensure that our systems work better. So anybody in this country who thinks that this voter fraud commission is really going to get at the heart of the problem, they're fooling themselves. Looking at real reforms that are going to make our systems better and make it easier for as many Americans as possible to engage in the election system, that's what a commission really needs to be looking at.
But Eugene, unfortunately, Republicans don't want that. Republicans, we see in North Carolina, we see just in Iowa where they passed the voter ID law. In Michigan, they're trying to do it as well. you see where they're trying to pull back on the efforts. They don't want to see automatic voter registration. They actually don't want to see voter education. This is a clear effort to stymie the black vote because they saw what happened in 2008, 2012, and they're trying to hold on to power as best as they can, and they're using legal means, skirting the laws to do it.
Look, I'm not supportive of voter suppression. I think what happened in North Carolina.
And you call it voter suppression.
Yeah.
Because your fellow black conservative Raynard Jackson swears that voter suppression doesn't exist.
Look,
I'm sure he's going to text me in a second, and he's stuck on stupid.
Let me put it this way. Between Raynard, Diamond, and Omarosa, and Silk, they got their own issues. But, this, common sense Republican here, I don't believe in voter suppression. I think what happened in North Carolina is reprehensible. I think what happened in Wisconsin is reprehensible. I believe the right to vote should be protected with all costs. I believe the access to vote should be protected with all costs. And so that's where I stand on. I think you're not going to find me here defending this. But Raynard wants to do it, or Omarosa, or Diamond and Silk.
Yeah, but the idea, Roland, of people making it harder for people to vote, to voter suppression, whether it's ID laws, whether it's not opening up voter stations, whether it's opening up few of them, is fundamentally repugnant to the Constitution and what this country stands for. Think about it. The concept of having less people vote than more people vote, it runs counter to our democracy. And these are elected officials who are engaged in this with a legal kind of foundation or legal overlay to it. And even when they lose, they still implement it at the state level until made by the federal courts to go in and then implement the piece, not just the policy.
It's the policy.
It really is.
It's the informal policy of the Republican Party. The question is, what are we going to do about it? I mean, there's all these voter education campaigns. Is there anything going on? Obviously, cross-check is a huge underreported issue. What are we doing about it?
There are several things that we're doing. Number one, folks need to understand that elections officials across the country are speaking out against this. So the very officials who have to monitor and oversee how elections run in their various jurisdictions are speaking out. The Secretary of State of Connecticut, the Secretary of State of Kentucky. These are all folks who are questioning this commission and are saying this is a problem, and we are going to be very tentative about following any directives that come out of this commission. That's number one. Number two, organizations like the Brennan Center and some other civil rights organizations are doing FOIA requests because we know that if we start questioning the information that underlines this commission, that we hopefully can get to some real information that may allow us to challenge this. And then there are some members of Congress right now who are actually looking at some legislative efforts to try and block the implementation of this commission.
But there's only one real answer to this, though. And that real answer is that the Democrats get organized at the grassroots level and take back some of these 1,000 or 1,100 seats they lost at the state level, county level, and beyond. And it may be happening, but it's not happening fast enough.
That's already happened. There's a record number of people who registered to run.
Right. Okay, fine. But you got to win those seats because they control these voter suppression efforts.
Virginia, we're going to see it in Virginia this year. We're going to see what you just said, I think, probably on the 13th with the turnout and at the end of the year in Virginia.
Can't happen fast enough.
And I have to say, the Brennan Center is a nonpartisan organization.
Right.
So let me just say this, though. We know from our work and our studies that the majority of jurisdictions where these voter suppression tactics have taken place are in states that have been controlled by Republicans.
Right. Exactly.
So we will say this.
That ain't called that's not nonpartisan. That's called truth.
It is the truth. It is the truth, Roland. Thank you.
Real news.
Which is why I'm not afraid to say those are Republican states where this has happened. So if people want a different result, perhaps they need to look at electing different leaders.
Exactly.
Because we have found that in Democratic-controlled jurisdictions, this is not happening. Those are jurisdictions where they're actually trying to do things like implement automatic voter registration.
And I'm going to go to Eugene for the last point, but here's the thing, and I was going to make that point. Shall I go to my iPad? Kristen Clark just sent me a tweet, the largest committee for civil rights under the law, and this is what she just said. Important discussion by Roland Martin, and this was the first election since 1965 without the heart of the Voting Rights Act in place as a result of the Shelby ruling, which was in 2013 by the Supreme Court. There is a direct link to that Shelby decision in 2013 to the lowest voter turnout of black folks in 20 years, and that was exactly why Republicans did it.
Well, the thing is this. I'm not going to defend it. I think pre-clearance is a good thing. It's something that was, I believe it was a legacy item of the civil rights movement. I believe that, one more time, states and the federal government should do everything they possibly can to protect folks' right to vote, and that should include pre-clearance.
We have to, Roland, restore the Voting Rights Act. And I thank my friend Kristen for sending that information into you. This is all part and parcel of a larger effort, and we have to understand that our efforts to protect the vote have to be multi-pronged. We have to deal with the suppression efforts, we have to deal with restoring the voting rights, and we have to deal with trying to get voting reforms implemented in the states across the country.
Well, let me say this here real quick. First of all, Nicole, thank you very much. Let me say this here to all the folks out there who are not black, okay? The reality is this here. We need all you old white folks to also say something, because you're the ones who are most impacted by the voter ID law in Wisconsin. You're impacted when they're forcing you to have to travel to a location to be certified with your voter ID. We need young white folks to also say something when they're moving these voting locations off of college campuses. We also need Latinos, those who are Vietnamese, those who are Chinese, those who are Korean, anybody where you get to have a voting ballot in your native tongue as a result of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Voter suppression is not just about African Americans, because the reality is, as I keep trying to tell y'all about identity politics, black folks have fought to make this America a more perfect union, and others have benefited. So we need other folks to stand up loudly and clearly to say this is wrong. And a lot of you broke Republicans out there, you're also impacted by this, because if you don't have a voter ID in rural America, you also get screwed as well. So sure, go ahead and say, just the black folks, and all of a sudden, when you see your rights are being taken as well, then you're gonna see how we feel.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not gonna let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally.
What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.